And another thing that has been an issue is engineered surfaces have now got a slightly lower rate of winning favorites. As you can see, this is a national statistic, 32.6% winning favorites. On turf, we're at 33, and on dirt, 34.7. This was Del Mar, cumulatively over the same period of 1999 to 2009. You can see our number was a little low, to explain some of the handicapper frustration. Here's the good news. This is a national chart for engineered surfaces around the country as well as dirt tracks. You can see this trend line. Here's the good news. I think handicappers are starting to figure this out, and Toby can address this better than I can, but we're seeing this in a number of situations. Here's Del Mar again. Ours not necessarily represented. We're a small meet. We've always had slightly lower numbers than others on winning favorites, but as you can see here, this is Santa Anita going from 2007, the first year of installation, to 2009. All of a sudden, we're getting right back into sort of more traditional territory in winning favorites. Oak Tree, all of a sudden we're getting way into more traditional territory of winning favorites. Same thing with Hollywood Park and Golden Gate Fields. And another reason why it might be tougher to handicap is the field sizes have been bigger. You can see this is, again, a national average of field sizes. These are the engineered surfaces in the green. And this is comparing their current tracks to old tracks. So to the extent that these tracks had previous dirt tracks, that's their old field sizes, these are their new ones. This is comparing all tracks in North America, either dirt or engineered, and as you can see, although it's been slightly declining as the horse population has declined, is there still a surplus of horses on field size on engineered versus dirt nationally. This is our comparison. Again, we're down slightly this year from last. I thought it's also interesting to look at our graded stakes races. You can see down here, back in the early 2000s, when I guess everything was great, we had 5.5 average stakes race, horses in a stakes race. We got up to 9.9 last year, 7.7, which still compares favorably with these numbers down here. And it's also, I think, helped our turf. People say, well, how's that going to help your turf races? But we find more and more horses are using the main track for training than the turf course. So we've had some positives on the average field size on the turf as well. Another thing that you hear constantly, and I always turn by this one, one of the more common things I heard this summer was, well, we hate this track because the bias changes every race. Now that's one way of looking at it. I tend to look at it as that maybe there isn't a bias and it's just harder to find. So people, when a horse wins on the lead one race and comes from off the pace the next race, we get the response that the bias changes every race. So we went to the Daily Racing Form, and as you know, many handicapping publications publish track variant information. So we asked them to provide us with what their standard deviation on average variant and standard deviation on various tracks around the country, comparing it to dirt tracks. And we used Belmont, Churchill Downs, and Saratoga because those are pretty comparable quality of races. And as you can see, here's Del Mar. Our standard deviation in 2009 was around 3.44. Here's comparable numbers for Saratoga, which is the one everybody wants to point to us at, 5.85. You can see that Keeneland actually is one of the more consistent tracks around the country. Golden Gate shows up favorably, as does Oak Tree and Hollywood Park. And I think those are, an indication that a lot of misconceptions out there that these things are, horribly inconsistent. They change every day. Dirt tracks change every day. People don't seem to acknowledge that. I know some handicappers who say, well, if a track runs during the daytime in one place and then Turfway Park, for example, in its old dirt days, it would be different when it had night racing. Things you won't see in the racing form of the Blood Horse. This did not finish statistics, and I know some people don't think that DNFs don't correlate to injuries. My own view is that there's got to be some correlation. I don't pretend to know exactly what it is. but these are horses that don't finish races. And as you can see, going back to the early 2000s, we had, significantly more horses not finishing than we do currently. Now again, some of these are raw numbers. You'd have to go back and look precisely at frequency, and I'm not pretending that we've done that full in-depth analysis, but things do compare nicely. It's 1.33 over here, 0.61 in terms of horses that just didn't finish races. This is the experience at Del Mar, which is actually even better than elsewhere. This is our actual trend line. As you can see this year, even though people said we had a horrible year, and in some senses we did, 2009 in terms of afternoon racing compared very favorably on the did not finish category. Here's Hollywood Park, Santa Anita, and again, very similar trend lines. You can see, back in these days, we were having lots and lots of horses that didn't finish races. Now, because people say that, the DNFs don't correlate to injury, we asked, and actually Equibase have done this work on their own, is how many horses that didn't finish a race actually had career-ending injuries. So the methodology that Equibase decided to utilize in this is, we're going to look at horses that ran and did not finish and failed to come back within 6 months within 6 months of the time they had a DNF. And as you can see here on the engineered surfaces, again, comparing very favorably with all tracks in terms of how many horses that didn't finish actually failed to come back to the races. This is, again, ours, as you can see, similar kind of results. And I wanted to show you this one because there's some, they don't provide 2009 figures for national because it hasn't been 6 months since the end of 2009, but we put in what at least at present Del Mar's was, and again, still compares favorably with all tracks around the country on the career-ending finishes as a percentage of starts. Now, this is, I'm going to tell you up front that Rick's going to tell me that these numbers are not very reliable. We went back to the California Horse Racing Board's website, and these were reported post-race injuries, and those were compiled by the official veterinarian. I don't know the actual format. That compilation was discontinued in 2006 and 2007, as I understand it. And these numbers are our numbers from the National Injury Database that is being prepared by the Jockey Club. Now, if you go to 10 other tracks around the country to get these numbers, you won't get them because the individual track information is confidential and available only to the track. We're happy to share ours, and these are what they are. But again, and whether these are reliable or not, somebody in the official veterinarian's trailer and receiving barn said, here's the number of post-race injuries we have in those years. And as you can see, in 2008, 2009, there is a significant decline in the number of reported post-race injuries from the official veterinarian. And that's just a comparison on a cumulative basis, roughly 30% less. And that's the end. Thank you.